I grew up in a small two-story house in Pennsylvania. The house was old, creaky, and constantly settling. My parents had me sleep in the upstairs bedroom, just across from a narrow door that led into the attic. I never liked that door. The attic didn't have stairs, just a steep wooden ladder. My dad only went up there a few times a year to store boxes, otherwise it stayed shut. But at night, when everything else was silent, I could hear noises coming from behind it. It started small, a faint dragging sound, like something being pulled across the floor, sometimes soft knocking, as if on the other side of the wall. My dad always said it was squirrels, but I wasn't convinced. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the attic door creaking. Not opening, just creaking like pressure was being put on it. I sat up, staring at the door. It didn't open. But I swear I heard something breathing deep, labored breaths. The next morning, I asked my dad to check it. He climbed the ladder with a flashlight while I waited at the bottom. He said the attic was completely empty, but when he came down, he looked pale. His flashlight had gone out for a moment, and he said he thought he heard someone whisper his name in the dark. I tried to put it out of my mind, but a week later, I woke up to a loud thump above me. The ceiling rattled like something had fallen, then 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the attic door. I froze, too scared to move. The knocks came again. I finally screamed for my dad, who rushed upstairs, but the noise stopped the moment his footsteps hit the landing. We searched again. The attic was empty. But this time, the wooden floor had fresh scratch marks etched into it, long, deep gouges that hadn't been there before. I begged my parents to let me sleep downstairs, and eventually they gave in. We sealed the attic door shut, but sometimes, late at night, I'd still hear faint scratching above the ceiling, like whatever was up there knew I was still listening. Last summer, I was driving through the Midwest on a road trip. After hours of being on the highway, I pulled off to stay at a cheap roadside motel. It was one of those single-story layouts where every room had its own door to the parking lot. My room was bare. 2 beds, a dresser, a small bathroom, and heavy curtains covering the window. It wasn't fancy, but I was exhausted. I locked the door, pulled the curtains shut, and laid down. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of running water. The bathroom sink was on. I knew I hadn't left it that way. I got up, turned it off, and checked the lock on the door again. Still bolted. Back in bed, I started to drift off when I heard it, a faint scratching on the window. I held my breath, staring at the curtains. The scratching continued slow, deliberate, like someone was dragging their fingernail down the glass. I didn't move. After what felt like forever, it stopped. I finally worked up the courage to peek through the curtain. Nothing, just the dark parking lot. At 3 a.m., I heard the bathroom faucet turn on again. This time, when I walked over, I noticed something on the mirror. Faint, foggy letters, as if written by a finger. Leave. I grabbed my keys and left without even checking out. As I drove off, I looked back at the row of rooms. In the window of the one I'd just left, the curtain was slightly open and the light was on, even though I had shut it off. I grew up in a rural area, and behind my house stretched acres of dense forest. As kids, my brother and I used to play out there, but once the sun set, the woods took on a completely different feeling. One fall evening, I was outside chopping wood when I heard something strange. Whistling. It was faint, but definitely a tune. It didn't sound like any bird I'd heard before. I walked a few steps closer to the tree line, listening. The whistling stopped. Then, about 20 seconds later, it started again. Closer this time. I called out, thinking maybe it was my brother playing a prank. No answer, just silence. That night, lying in bed, I heard it again. The same eerie whistle, carrying through the woods. It was so faint I almost thought I imagined it, but it continued for several minutes. The next day, I found something on the edge of the forest, small piles of rocks stacked carefully on top of each other, like markers. None of us had built them. Over the next week, the whistling became a nightly occurrence. Always around the same time, always coming from just beyond the tree line. One night, I decided to sit by my bedroom window and wait. At 1:30 a.m., right on cue, the whistling began. But this time, I noticed something else. Between the trees, in the moonlight, there was a tall, thin shape, perfectly still. The whistling stopped, and for the first time, I realized it wasn't coming from the woods. It was coming from right below my window. I froze, too afraid to move. By the time I finally looked again, the woods were silent. But the next morning, at the base of the wall beneath my window, I found another stack of rocks. I travel a lot for work, and last year I stayed at a small roadside hotel in Indiana. It wasn't anything special. Just a single row of rooms, maybe 12 in total, facing a cracked parking lot with a buzzing streetlight. My room was number 7. When I checked in, the front desk clerk gave me a strange look and said, "Let us know if anyone bothers you tonight." I didn't understand what he meant at first, but I brushed it off. After a long day, I was settling in, eating takeout on the bed, when I heard something slam 2 doors down. A man stormed out of room 9, yelling curses at no one in particular. He looked rough, disheveled clothes, wild movements, like he hadn't slept in days. Eventually, he went back into his room and slammed the door again. I thought that was the end of it, but later that night, I heard pounding on my door, not a knock, hard, angry pounding. Then a voice. "Open the door. I saw you watching me." My stomach dropped. I hadn't been watching him, but clearly he thought I had. I didn't say a word. I just sat there frozen, staring at the door. The pounding grew louder. "You think you're safe in there? I'll break this door down." I grabbed the phone to call the front desk, but before I could dial, the pounding stopped. I heard his footsteps stomping back down toward room 9. I barely slept that night. Every sound from outside made me flinch. The next morning, I told the clerk what had happened. He sighed and said, "That man's been staying here all week. You're not the first guest to complain." I wanted to leave immediately, but work forced me to stay another night. That evening, I wedged a chair under the handle of my door, just in case. Sure enough, around midnight, it started again. A loud crash against my door, like someone throwing their shoulder into it. Then his voice shouting, "I know you're in there. Come out and face me, coward." I didn't move. My heart was racing so fast I could hear it in my ears. Another crash shook the door. "I'm gonna kill you," he screamed. I clutched the phone, ready to call 911, but just as suddenly as it started, the banging stopped. I sat there in silence, too terrified to breathe, until I finally heard him storm back into his room, slamming the door. When I left the next morning, I passed by room 9. His door was open just a crack. The inside looked pitch black, though it was broad daylight outside. And just as I was loading my bags into the car, I heard him shout from inside, voice low but sharp, "I'll see you again." When I turned to look, the door to room 9 was shut tight. Those were 4 true scary stories that prove you never really know what's hiding just beyond the door, or even right next to you. If you enjoyed tonight's video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And remember, the scariest stories are the ones that could happen to you. Thanks for watching, and sleep well if you can.